President Trump has granted a 30-day reprieve from tariffs on many Canadian goods, but the threat of another key tariff date is looming, and that is the 25% levy he's set to place on steel and aluminum imports from all producers, including Canadian. That's set to go ahead next week on Wednesday, the 12th. The newest pause, this 30 days that we're talking about, that will end April the 2nd. If that in fact ends and the tariffs go back, that could mean a 25% additional tariff stacking on top of aluminum steel. So you're talking potentially 50%. Michael Garcia is the CEO of Algoma Steel in Sault Ste. Marie. He has told CBC the exemption may not fully cover his products, and so making business decisions is difficult.
I don't know what that delay means, other than we could be here in less than a month kind of going through the same motions of, is there going to be a tariff? Oh my, there's a tariff. Now, what are we going to do?
So that speaks to the uncertainty within that particular company. But let's look at the industry broadly this morning. Catherine Cobden is back with me, the president and CEO of the Canadian Steel Producers Association, and she's in Ottawa. Welcome back, Catherine.
Good morning.
The statement that your association put out at word of the reprieve indicated you were cautiously relieved, but I know you'd been hoping for an exemption. That did not come. So what's the sentiment within the industry to this reprieve?
Yeah, so, obviously every day without a tariff is a better day than a day with a tariff. So from that perspective, we are relieved. However, as Mike was just saying in his clip, we don't, we do expect tariffs to continue. We see March 12th as happening. And,
you do. Sorry, that was going to be my question. From what you're hearing so far, it will go ahead in your estimation? Yes.
Yeah, we're prepared for that. And so our main message on the tariff reprieve is that we need to use this time as a country to retool and do what we need to do to basically give at-risk sectors like ourselves a fighting chance. And that includes making sure that we're doing everything we can to protect our domestic market.
Let's talk about that in just a second, because there have been some changes in that regard that I like, which have changed, in fact, since our last conversation. So I want to come back to that. But again, with this March 12th date looming, if Donald Trump does place that 25% on aluminum and steel affecting your industry, what kind of reaction do you anticipate from Canada? Will there be any specific retaliation from Canada to that tariff?
We expect so. In fact, we have been calling for the government to ensure that the day that steel tariffs come into place, that they retaliate in exact measure with U.S. steel products. So definitely product for product, 25% tariffs on U.S. supply.
And do you have a commitment from the Canadian government that will be the case on Wednesday, if indeed the tariff goes ahead?
Yeah, I don't want to speak for the government, but we certainly, at this moment in time, expect that to be Canada's response.
The uncertainty that Mike Garcia was speaking to, it's already having an effect in his company. He has paused all U.S. shipments for now. They've also had to make some layoffs there, but pausing shipments to the United States. Elsewhere within your 17 members, are you hearing of any other tangible impacts thus far?
Oh, absolutely. Even this is just on the threat of the tariffs. Even before March 4th, we've seen job losses, we've seen production curtailments, and we have seen deferral of investments. So, this is, if the desired effect from the United States is to have a detrimental impact on the steel sector, that is already taking shape. At this point in time, Heather, we're really of the view that we have to adjust as a country. These tariffs or the threat of tariffs will have detrimental effects. So we have to do more to protect our domestic market. We produce about what the domestic market needs, not perfectly, but definitely it could help us a lot if we got better at domestic steel consumption in our country.
This was something that we spoke about initially with the threat of tariffs looming, and we did talk about how you wanted to shore up the domestic industry. Since that conversation, there's been a lot of discussion. Yesterday, the breaking news about commitments to reducing some of the interprovincial trade barriers. We're hearing a lot about changing procurement policies to buy Canadian when possible under what is allowed under the trade agreements. Does that signal to you that there are perhaps perhaps new opportunities, or what are the opportunities that you think this may present to you within Canada?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we want two things. We want unfair trade to be stopped at our borders. So while we send 95% USMCA compliant material to the US, right, from Canada, that is not the case in our borders. Within our borders, we have a lot of offshore steel and a lot of unfairly traded steel. So our first and most important proposal to the government is put up more tariffs at our border for unfair traders. We know who they are, make them, get that out of our market, so that gives us a fighting chance. And then the second important piece is the one you mentioned about let's prioritize domestic steel first in all the infrastructure projects going on and to come in our country. We should no longer accept, Chinese steel in some of the biggest infrastructure projects we have going on, which is the case today. Canadian steel can't compete with unfairly traded steel.
So let's look out a little bit beyond. Again, Wednesday, potentially 25% on the industry. If the reprieve ends on April the 2nd, we would then have a 50% tariff on Canadian steel, because that would be stacked, our understanding of that. At 50%, what would the impact be?
So I think we have to look at 50%, and that's partly why you see our strong pivot to we have to do more, because at 50%, we essentially just need to consider the American market lost to the Canadian steel industry. And that's a
just
big
not
market.
Able to enter the United States.
Not at 50%. There's no way.
And that is the biggest, Canada's the biggest trade partner
Importer.
in
right.
importer for
That's
the
right.
U.S. and U.S. is for Canada. So that would be a huge impact. So obviously with that at stake, couldn't go into that market. What then are you doing between now and Wednesday? Where are you focused in your efforts to make sure, you think it's going ahead, but still have a few days and things change very quickly as far as tariffs go, it seems. So what are you doing in these last days to really keep the pressure on?
Well, clearly we support the government's efforts to try to find a path out. We hope for this. That's the best outcome, but we absolutely prepare for the worst. And that's where we need the, strong trade policy changes. Incidentally, the proposals we've given to the government can all be done now. They're orders in council. They don't require Parliament to be sitting. So, we're very hopeful that the hard work we've done to identify these specific things that could help the domestic industry could be done very, very quickly and within the political context we find ourselves in. So it is our absolute message. While we need to obviously continue the good work to try to get out of these tariffs, we must focus our efforts on Canadian domestic trade policy for the sake of our workforce, for the sake of our communities. It's urgent.
Catherine, I expect we'll speak next week, but I thank you for the time this morning, and we'll certainly be following the efforts between now and March the 12th. Catherine Cobden in Ottawa. Thank you, and this is CBC Morning Live.